Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Onwards and Upwards show, an AMN International show for all of our global healthcare workers across the world. We're glad you're joining us today and excited to talk about immigration and some changes. And I'm going to be joined by some expert guests. We're going to answer questions together. And hopefully you're just excited as I am with some of the recent developments that have taken off. Let's see if we have our guests yet backstage with us. Are Mike and Chris there yet?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
We're both here.
All right.
Looking wonderful.
Yay! Happy Friday, everybody.
For this and everything.
Pardon?
We got new haircuts for this, both of us.
Oh, I'm impressed. I can't wait to see those new haircuts. I am not seeing your camera on right now. We may be having a little bit of technical difficulty, so we'll give you guys a minute on that. I'm going to check and see where our viewers are signing in from today for just a second. So I see Patience is signing in from Zimbabwe, and Brian from Kenya, Douglas from Aline from Brazil, I think. Hazel watching from Zimbabwe as well. And let's see, King. Hi, King. Good to see you on. I think we're going to talk a little later. So you are signing in from the Philippines, and Chris Musillo's team is helping you with your immigration process. Mame from Ghana. And Alaa from, I don't know where you're from, but you did say hello, so hello back. Florence from Kenya. And Antwi from Ghana. Another nurse from the Philippines, Avion. Jihad from Jordan. Santosh from Germany. Wow, great variety of locations today. We already have our first question, guys, but for some reason still not getting visuals on the two of you, so that's kind of interesting. So for those of you who are joining and you're like, where is Danielle? Danielle is traveling today, so I am going to be hosting this session with the movement that we have happened. We didn't want to delay the show, but Danielle sends you her greetings and looks forward to joining you for the next Immigration Onwards and Upwards show next month. So in the meantime, my name is Holly Musselwhite. I am the Senior Clinical Manager for AMN Healthcare International, and I am pleased to see all of you joining us today. Mike and Chris, I'm going to give you the floor to introduce yourselves, and we'll start with Mike.
Okay. Hi, Holly. My name is Mike Hammond. I'm an immigration attorney based here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I've been doing immigration work for over 30 years and happy to be here today to answer some questions.
Thanks, Mike. And Chris?
Yeah, good day, everybody. I'm Chris Musillo, and I'm an immigration attorney who's worked at the intersection of healthcare and immigration since the last millennium, so quite a few years. Good to be with everybody.
All right, I can see you now. It's like magic. Okay, thank you for introducing yourselves. So let's see here. Maybe we can talk for just a minute about this latest Visa Bulletin and some of the changes that we've seen in the one that just came out a few days ago. I think we have a visual, so we can share that with everybody as well. And then we'll get started with this first question because it's kind of very relevant to that. So let's see. We had... while we're waiting for the visuals to come up, we had a change from some of the countries across the globe. There was some positive forward movement. There it is. And so we see with the July 2025 Visa Bulletin, the rest of the world or worldwide, other than the countries listed below, move forward from February 8 to April 1st of 2023. So that's pretty good movement. Was that a surprise for either of you to see that happen?
I guess I'll take it, Mike. I thought this was one of the more. Yeah, I thought this was one of the more interesting visa bulletins we've seen in a while for several reasons. First, while we didn't see the Philippine EB3 date move with really at all, it was still February 8th, 2023. We actually did see the all other country date moved from February 8th, 2023. It moved 7 or so weeks to April 1st, 2023. So while not very good news for our Philippine nationals, some frankly pretty positive news. It was one of the bigger jumps we've seen in a while for all other countries. Yeah. And of course, I'm not talking about India and China. The other interesting thing I thought about the Visa Bulletin, and it probably went a little under the radar, was the dates of filing, which on one level has no significance whatsoever, but we believe that it's a pretty good forward indicator. And the dates of filing in June for both all other and the Philippines was March 1st, 2023. In July, it's moved all the way up till May of 2023 for both the Philippines and the all other. That probably means that there's some slack still in there for the rest of this fiscal year. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we see another movement ahead in final action dates in the next Visa Bulletin, the August Visa Bulletin. So that's at least what that would indicate, that there's still visas out there and available. If we had seen the dates of filing, which is Chart B, match Chart A, which is the final action dates, then I'd say that there is no slack and we would not expect any movement. So there's I know everyone's always going to ask for predictions. I think that, it's always hard predicting, especially predicting the future, but it wouldn't surprise me if in August we see a slight progression in the final action dates, at least based off of the data that the department.
All right. Thank you for that great overview. We did have this first question, which I was looking at, and it says the next month we'll see another movement or we'll have retrogression again. So Chris, you kind of alluded to that, but Mike, are you kind of having similar thoughts around what may be happening sort of behind the scenes and what we can expect maybe even for next month?
Yeah, no, definitely. I normally during the summer, we see what a lot of people refer to as summer retrogression, which simply means that all of the visas that have been allocated for the year have already been used up. So people have gone to their interviews, they've been approved. People here in the States have had their 485s approved, et cetera. And to some degree, that's a means that we're running an efficient immigration program, in that if there's 140,000 immigrant visas to be allocated in a given year, that if we use all 140,000 before the fiscal year ends, that's a good thing. Summer retrogression may look bad, but it just means that the process is being efficient. This year, the fact that it's moving forward, I agree with Chris that we're likely to see movement again in the August bulletin. And on one hand, that's nice. That's good news for everyone. On the other hand, it also likely means that they're not processing as many cases as we would like to see them process, which will ultimately come back to bite us a little bit as we get near the end of the year. But I suspect that we will see further movement again in August. Typically, we kind of project that the Chart B, or the date for filing chart, is the chart that the final action date moves up to and meets by the end of the fiscal year. So with that reasoning, then we certainly expect. And one of the things Chris pointed out that I think was extremely interesting, and hopefully there's some reason behind it as far as numbers available, but that the for final action date, the Filipino and the rest of the world chart split, which is the first time in a while they've split. That used to historically be the norm, but the date for filing chart, which both moved up 2 months, moved up in lockstep with the Philippines and the rest of the world. So I think most of us found that fairly optimistic for what we can expect through the rest of this fiscal year. So good news there with that bulletin.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing this for a while too, and I was very surprised to see the rest of the world and Philippines split. But looking at the positives, and there's certainly a lot to be excited about at the moment. So those of you who are watching right now, please feel free to put your questions in the comments, and we will try to get to them today. We have two great experts on who can share some of their knowledge with you, and maybe even help if you have some anxiety or some very particular types of questions. That's what we're here for today. So let's see. I'm looking here. I've got a lot more people signing on from different locations. So Rose from Kenya, Joel from Liberia, Yusuf from Saudi Arabia. Good to see you guys on today. And Jackie from Kenya, Everline, I'm sorry, I missed that one. Everline from Pakistan, and Pradeep from Bhutan, Fatima from Iran. And let's see, they're already saying, what about October of 2025? What's the projection? We'll get there. Okay. Let's see. All right, we have Sanrio watching from the Philippines as well. So let's scroll down a little bit and see if we've got any specific questions coming in, and I'll get back to the locations in a little bit. So let's see. I apologize. I'm going to say the last name, I think, Bernard. Looks like the movement isn't bringing corresponding interview slots. What would be the cause of priority movement dates without embassy interviews? So, Chris, I'll go back to you to see if you've heard anything about this or if you have any thoughts on this particular comment.
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, the question's a little open-ended, so I'll try and take it from a few different directions. The first one, of course, is that the Visa Bulletin is for July, not for June. So that may explain, for instance, if your Visa Bulletin is based on a non-Filipino, Indian, or Chinese priority date, it just doesn't take effect till July 1st. Number one. Number two, the government isn't the fastest moving vehicle in the world. And so, the Visa Bulletin just came out a few days ago. We do not expect the embassies to move that fast. That's the second. Third, we overgeneralize sometimes with this stuff. So your embassy in one country may not have moved, but in other countries, it probably is moving. Some of those issues may just be local issues, even some real basic stuff like maybe a couple of the consular officials are out sick, on vacation, moving to other consulates around the world. And so there's just a staffing shortage. But I don't have any information that there's any sort of generalized slowdown. But again, there may be some local issues in your local area. It's definitely something I think you want to get in touch with your attorney or your case manager to see if there's something specific going on with you. But I haven't heard of anything out of the administration that there's some, in fact, legally that would probably be problematic. And indeed, the State Department controls the Visa Bulletin and they control the embassies and consulates. If they wanted to slow down the processing, the natural place would be to use the Visa Bulletin and just slow it down globally rather than move forward the Visa Bulletin and then tell all the embassies to slow down. That would be just really an unusual way to do that.
Right. So let's see. Sudeep says priority date 2023 June. I think you're saying when can I expect that I might be current. So Mike, do you maybe want to share again what we're thinking may be happening over the next month or so? And then obviously we do have questions about what does 2025 of October look like, but
Yeah, so I would say that if you're a June 2023, since the date for filing chart only moved to May 1st, that it would be unrealistic to think that you will be current in the rest of this fiscal year. I would say your best chance of being current would be when the new Visa Bulletin comes out for the new year, which is obviously the October Visa Bulletin, which will be issued in mid-September. And for those of you who are just joining these calls and are not sure why we keep talking about the October Visa Bulletin and the year, it's because the government works on a fiscal year. that runs from October 1st till September 30th. They do not work on a calendar year. So when we're talking end of the year, we're talking September 30th. So in a few months, as opposed to the end of the calendar year. So yeah, so for the person with a June 2023, Sudeep, I'm not sure I'd put a lot of money on October, but I'd put a little money on October, man.
Okay. Papik is saying, what do you mean by Philippines and rest of the world split? So let's pull back up the updated Visa Bulletin again, so you can see the difference in the rest of world is now current to April 1st of 2023. And the Philippines is actually, it did not move this month for the Philippines, unfortunately. It stayed at February 8th. And so that's what we're talking about when we say there's now a difference between the priority date for rest of world versus Philippines. So let's see. So Veek is asking about a different type of visa, an H-1B visa for Indian nurses. Any updates on this? So again, that's also a very broad question. Mike, as far as H-1Bs go for Indian nurses, is there anything that's specific to that group of nurses, or is it more that the H-1B is open for nurses regardless of country?
Yeah, so the H-1B is available to irrespective of what country someone was born in. I think the reason probably why a lot of Indian nurses are more interested in the H-1B is because the EB-3 process their line is about 150 years long. And so it's not very practical if you're an Indian born to get into EB-3Q, where the H-1B might be the only option. One of the things that I would caution is the H-1B is not generally available to RNs, whereas there are certain individuals on this call that are maybe med techs or OTs or PTs or pharmacists, where the H-1B is readily available to those occupations. And the reason why that's the case is because the RN position here in the U.S., the standard for a licensure in all 50 states is an associate's degree. And to obtain an H-1B, not only do you, the individual, have to have a BSN, but the job you're going into must require a BSN or normally require a BSN. Now, a BSN is typical for international RNs, particularly those from India. So you're not going to have any issue with you qualifying. But there are not a lot of jobs in the U.S. Where a BSN is required for a registered nurse. So you have to be at the exact right spot to find an H-1B job. And then in addition, there are two types of employers broadly in the U.S. Those who have to go through the lottery to get H-1Bs and those who are cap exempt. And the people going through the lottery have to submit registrations in February, March, and then we're in the middle of the filing season right now. And so for-profit hospitals or hospitals who are not cap exempt, the earliest they could even put someone in a lottery would be next year. So next January, February, March, and the earliest you could get filed is sometime after that. Cap exempt institutions are limited to those employers that are nonprofit and affiliated with a university. So not only do you have to find the right employer that have to be cap exempt, then you have to find the employer who has the right type of positions that need a BSN. So there's not a lot of, there's some, but not a lot of H-1Bs for RNs.
Thank you so much. That was a great overview. And hopefully that answers a lot of questions that you guys may have around H-1Bs. So Kiai Isaac says, why is there currently a huge delay in I-140 approvals? So Chris, I'll give this question to you. And maybe, again, it's a little bit general, but you can give us some more specific ideas on the timelines.
Yeah, so I always hesitate when someone uses the word delay on processing, because that implies that there's some sort of intentional program going on to delay the I-140s. Indeed, that's not what's happening. So just to take a step back, there's essentially two ways you can get your I-140 approved. You can, one, file under premium processing, and two, file under regular processing. Now, the reality is if you're going to have a priority date that's 2 or 3 years from now, when your visa date would be current, when your priority date would be current, there is essentially no urgency on your behalf to get your I-140 approved, other than peace of mind, which is, frankly, a good reason for some people, but maybe not necessary. And so if you're the U.S. government and you're seeing I-140s being filed and the priority dates are, sometime in 2025, and you, the USCIS, know that these cases are not going to be eligible for either their visa appointment or their adjustment of status to happen for 2 or 3 years into the future, there's no urgency on your part. And so you probably allocate some of your employees to other areas of immigration. And indeed, if you're the USCIS, you say to yourself, if someone does want their priority date to be approved quicker, their I-140 to be approved quicker so that they can get that peace of mind, they have a pathway, and that pathway is to pay $2,805, upgrade their case under the premium processing program, and then indeed you can have your I-140 approved. So I definitely empathize, because that anxiety of your I-140 sitting for 6 or 9 or 12 months is something that I would not want to go through if I were somebody. But you do have an option, which is premium processing. Again, it's not a great option because it's terribly expensive, but you do have an option, number one. And number two, it ultimately will not affect your priority date and your visa appointment, because your priority date is determined by the date you file your case, not the date it's approved.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm just going to go back to who's watching from where for just a moment. So I see Radiant Raquel is watching from Jamaica, and Pesci is watching from Kenya, and Erico also from Kenya, Mohammed from Ghana, and Vicky from Canada. All right, we got somebody on the North American continent too. Look at that. So Witty is asking, watching from London, my priority date is 10/2/2023. Is it possible for me to be current on the October bulletin? I'm already in DQ. So, Mike, what are the possibilities for Witty?
Yeah, so this is another crystal ball, and as Chris already stated, it is difficult to make predictions, particularly for things in the future. I like that line. So where I was willing to put a little money on Sandeep for a June date, I don't know that I'd put money on an October date. What you're looking at is, will the bulletin advance 5 months on the date for filing chart from May to October, and 6 months from in April to October? And I think it would be unlikely to jump that far in October, but it's certainly possible. Certainly the fact that the dates have moved as far as they've done as late as in this year indicates maybe there is something going on with respect to some of the demand. And so it's possible, but I would not put money on October.
All right. So there you have it. Unfortunately, until we get a crystal ball, that's what we're going with. So Nana says, issues with I-140 approval. Can you please talk about it? Nana, we did just briefly go over that as far as timelines go. So if you don't mind putting a little more clarity, if you need more information, I will look for that and we'll come back to your comment there. Michael, hello. I have been current since October of 2024. There a chance I will get an interview date before the financial year ends? So, Chris, I see some things in this that are kind of questionable. Maybe you could dive in a little bit.
Yeah. So by financial year, what the comment is referring to is the U.S. fiscal year, which runs from October 1st through September 30th. So we have about 3.5 more months in the U.S. fiscal year. The individual says they're current. If they're current and have indeed been current since October, they should absolutely have had an interview by now, or at the very least have an interview date scheduled. So this is very unusual, and I would say that this individual needs to contact their case manager at AMN and indeed the legal team, whether it's my office, Mike's office, or someone else's office, to see what's going on particular about their case. They should have an interview now. I do know that there are 1 or 2 hotspots around the world where the interviews are going very slowly for reasons that are very localized. But still, you probably, if you've been current for 7-8 months now, you should probably be talking to someone that see what's specifically going on with your case.
All right. So that's some great advice and definitely worth following up as soon as possible on. I do have a few more locations. Let's see. Mark Savella watching from, looks like UAE maybe, and Andrew from Kenya, and France from Philippines. That sounds interesting. Kimuli from Uganda, and Bing from Canada, another Canadian location. All right. Let's see. I'm going to look for some more questions here. We did kind of cover, hopefully you heard it, Sasha, that for a priority date in October of 23, that coming current this year is kind of a long shot, but again, no crystal ball. So, we'll see. We certainly would be looking at what will happen with the October Visa Bulletin, because that may be at least some significant movement. But let's look at another question that maybe looks at this topic a little differently. So let's see. Simple life in the U.S. I am from the Philippines, EB3 Philippines. My priority is May 31st. Of 2023. Will the priority date become current this new fiscal year? So let's see, I got to rotate back here. Would it be Chris's turn?
I think it's Mike's turn.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, and I know the answer to this one, so let me have a turn.
Go for it.
I like it when I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, October is the new fiscal year, and I would certainly think May of 2023, May 21st, or whatever, May 31st, 2023 would become current in the next fiscal year. I would predict for you sometime in fourth quarter of this calendar year that you will be current. So.
Yeah, some good news for you. And hopefully some others who may be watching and listening that are around that priority date. So Nayabs says, hi, what would be the approximate expected date of immigration visa by the end of this year? So that's kind of, again, a very interesting question. I think, again, we've been talking about fiscal years. So as we said, the government runs their fiscal year, or the end of the year is in September, and a new fiscal year begins in October. And so the Visa Bulletin that's released in mid-September is going to tell us what's happening then. Nayabs, maybe you could be more specific to your situation, and we could delve a little bit deeper on what you might be able to expect. Avion, I am in the family-based immigration category for applicants over the age of 21, and my petition was filed in 2019. I would like to kindly inquire about the estimated waiting time for my visa to be available. Chris, is this something you can help her with?
I'm not sure I followed the question. Can you read it again, Holly?
Sure. So I am in the family-based immigration category for applicants over the age of 21, and my petition was filed in 2019. I would like to kindly inquire about the estimated waiting time for my visa to be available.
Well, so we would need to know what her country of birth is. She, I'm assuming by saying she's over 21, she is what we call an unmarried son and daughter, which is the F2B category. And I think she said she's 2021. Depending on what country she's from, right now, Mexico is January of 2007. So I could pretty certainly say if she's Mexican, she's not going to be there. Philippines is 2012. I feel pretty confident that if she's 2021, it's not going to be for the Philippines. India, China, and the rest of the other countries in the world is October of 2016. So that also seems pretty unlikely. But at least if she's from a country that's not Mexico or the Philippines, and it goes by country of birth, by the way, maybe sometime before the decade's out, she might reach eligibility to get her green card. If she's from Mexico and Philippines, I fear that she's really looking sometime in the 2030s.
All right. And it was 2019, but still from the dates you put out there, it sounds like it could be a while.
Still a long time. In fact, I'm not sure anything changes much from what I said, which is that if she's 2019, China, Mexico, and all other, she's frankly, even though there's only a 3-year gap, these family-based categories often move very slowly. So, it wouldn't surprise me if she's looking around 2030, and then for the Mexico and the Philippines, my goodness, quite a ways into the 2030s.
Unfortunately. Okay. The next question kind of takes a different look at this process. So Alaa says, if I have the interview date for USA Embassy, can I reschedule to another date? So Chris, Mike, this one's for you.
Okay. First of all, before you reschedule any interview date, you definitely need to talk to your account manager to make sure what the implications of that are going to be, because there may already be plans in place for start dates and travel dates and all these other kinds of things. You certainly can reschedule your interview date. However, you can't control when you can reschedule it to. So if you have a date, say in June, and you want to reschedule that to July or August, the priority date in July we know about, but we don't know what the priority date is going to be in August and September. You could retrogress. You could also have a situation where the consulate says you're going to reschedule, that's fine, but we're going to put you at the back of the line of people who are already DQ'd. Which means you may seriously be delayed. We've seen some people delayed 4 or 5 months who want to reschedule. So definitely talk to your account manager to discuss any type of rescheduling, because it can be extremely problematic and create quite a delay.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we've had a lot more questions coming in, so let's see what's up next. Temitope says, filed I-140 for EB3 visa as a nurse in January 2024, but not yet approved. Does it take that long? And what happens if the date becomes current while the petition is yet to be approved? Chris?
So January 2024, if indeed that's right, that's 18 months. You definitely should be talking to your case manager or attorney. It should not be taking that long. But if you were to become current and your I-140 was not approved, you are not eligible for a green card. So you do need that I-140 to be approved. But the number one thing you need to do is 18 months is a long time. You do need to understand why your case remains pending. That would be very unusual for it to be that long.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's see. Vikram says, does consular interview get processed based on priority dates? Since I have a priority date from 2011 and am Indian born. Mike?
So there are a couple variables. There is the variable of a priority date. There's also the variable of when you were DQ'd. So most consulates process by order of DQ and priority date. And so if you're current, if someone was DQ'd and they're also current and they were DQ'd before you, in most consulates, they're going to go first, regardless of your priority date. But it is a combination of those factors. Depending on how long you've been current, and when you got DQ'd, you might want to check with your account manager or your attorney to see what they can expect as far as a interview, particularly if you've been current and DQ'd for over, say, 3 or 4 months and don't have an appointment. We're not seeing any odd issues out of the consulates in India. We're not seeing a lot of immigrant visas being processed out of India because of priority dates. But when they are, we're not seeing huge delays. So I would reach out to your account manager and attorney to check on that if you already are DQ'd and have been for several months.
All right. So on that note, we're going to switch gears again for Charles. And Mike, this one will be yours. So the priority date is March 28th of 2023, already in the U.S. with an F1 visa. Can I do adjustment of status? And how long will it take to be approved? Ooh, this is a long one. Can I start working full-time if it's approved? How soon will I get an interview date in the U.S.? This one's long. I am going to start by just saying I don't know what your country of birth is. So some of this information that we may have to share may be different, but let's see what the thought is.
Yeah. So, was it your
Go
mic?
ahead, Chris. I think it's your turn.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about the adjustment of status. I'm not sure about the dates and country of birth, Holly, as you said. So maybe we can just talk a little more broadly about this issue of adjustment of status. Number one, we never recommend anyone comes into the United States assuming that they will be able to adjust status as a student or a tourist. If you're on an H-1B, you can, but if you're a student or a tourist, you shouldn't do that. Number two, adjustment of status is a much actually legally more challenging process than consular processing. Why? Because you've been in the United States for several months or several years, and therefore you could, from the U.S. government's perspective, you are much more likely to have violated your U.S. immigration status if you're in the United States than you're outside the U.S. Accordingly, we always at the law firm, and I know Mike feels the same way, we always get much more involved in the adjustment of status process, frankly, even than we do with the consular processing. Because again, if you're consular processing, you've maybe not been in the United States ever, or if you have been, maybe you've just come once or twice for tourism reasons. And so the risk that you had violated U.S. immigration law, or for that matter, any U.S. law, is very low. Whereas if you're in the United States, it's much higher, and it requires a much more forensic look into your immigration history, and indeed if you have had any sort of other issues. So that's number one. Number two, if you're in the United States and you've been in the United States, let's call it for a while on a student visa, maybe 6 months, a year, longer than that, odds are you can adjust status. But again, get your immigration attorney and get your consular case manager involved early in that process so that they can talk you through the adjustment of status. There will be opportunities for you to work, although it will not be at the time that your adjustment of status is filed. In terms of the timeline, this is where you'll want to look at Chart A and Chart B. You actually can file adjustment of status when you are current under Chart B sometimes. Other times you're only eligible to file your adjustment of status when Chart A is current for your particular case. It varies throughout the year. Broadly speaking, we find that the U.S. government uses Chart B early in the fiscal year, October, November, that kind of time frame, and that they use Chart A later in the fiscal year. But again, I'm speaking very generally. Your case is your case. It's not every case. So please be sure to talk to your case manager and your attorney. So just to summarize, based on the question, you may very well be eligible for an adjustment of status case, which is nice. It's a complicated situation because you've been in the United States for some time. Your immigration attorney will want to review your travel history and your U.S. history. And number three, you will probably be able to get an employment authorization document before you have your green card interview, that allows you to work. In terms of the specific timing of your case, that's actually going to be governed by a few things, both U.S. Immigration Service, just their processing time in these adjustments of status. And we are seeing increasing, although it's not a lot at this point, but we are seeing increasing requests for employment-based interviews, in particular for spouses of employment-based interviews. So that may also delay your processing time, because then your local immigration office will need to get involved in order to schedule you and or your spouse for an immigration interview. So I hope that's a good survey of some of the issues that you'll need to to consider with your adjustment status.
Thank you, Chris. And before we move on, I'll just remind all of our viewers today that if you are interested in applying and working with our case specialists and our immigration partners in finding a good match for you, then that is when you want to go to amnhealthcare.com//international and apply. We will be looking forward to hearing from those of you who are still thinking about this process, but seeing your peers are moving forward and you want to move forward too. So contact us. We will certainly put the expertise that we have over many years to use on your behalf. All right. More questions, lots of questions today. So it's great to see you guys are continuing to bring things up. And some of these I know we've answered, so I'm going to try to get to some of the unique ones when I can, although if we need to reiterate, we certainly can. So let's see. Evelyn says, do you guys think that EB3 is getting some of the spillover from family-based cases, and that can make the backlog get smaller? So Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, so what Evelyn is referring to is during the COVID years when the consulates were closed and there were very few, if any, individuals coming in from the family-based cases on family-based immigrant visas, there is spillover that gives us more than 140,000 a year, and that obviously number decreased, the spillover number. I do not know if there was any spillover for this fiscal year. In my head, I'm thinking there was very, very small. Traditionally, there's no spillover because there is retrogression in the family-based categories. And all those calculations are made at the end of the fiscal year, but I do not anticipate any spillover from the family-based category. There is if you're curious about it, if you go to the Department of State's website, they have a whole history of the visa bulletins, and they do a year-end summary that talks about the spillover and where the categories came from and how that all worked. And if you're a nerd for this stuff, which is, I'm saying that in a positive way, it may be interesting to read. So, but I don't anticipate any.
All right. So there you have it. Another question answered, and we will keep moving forward. I'm going to probably say your name wrong, but I'll try. So Tiamoa is specifically with the Ghana Embassy and had some friends who became current in June's bulletin for February 8 and yet haven't been slated for interviews yet. Any ideas why a previous updated bulletin wouldn't qualify for visa interview, please? Chris?
Yeah, what were those dates again?
So became current with last month's bulletin for the February 8 move that we saw.
Okay.
And don't have interview dates in Ghana yet.
Yeah, Ghana is one of those countries that we do see backlogs because of local issues, sometimes staffing, sometimes there's just peculiar issues in Ghana. So I'm not terribly surprised that they don't move quite that fast. So that may be a local issue around Ghana. Some of the sub-Saharan African embassies often have other priorities, and so they don't move as fast as maybe the Asian ones or the European ones. So that may be what's going on there. This is another one of those. Please contact your case manager and immigration attorney and see if they can get some real local information for you.
Mm-hmm. All right, great advice there. And I know I personally have seen some nurses with the Ghana Embassy start to get dates, but for a while there, it was pretty slow. So there is some forward movement, which is encouraging. Let's see, Savella watching from Dubai. And so we probably should go back to this. We touched on it very early in the show. So why is the Philippines removed from rest of world? So we didn't exactly hit on this exact point, but we kind of alluded to the fact that there's a difference in dates. So Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, so historically, it's no different than why China has different dates and India has different dates and Mexico often has different dates. It's because there's more people in line from those countries. So as more people are in line for those countries, and there's a limitation under what they call the per country limits as to how many they can give out per year, that's a percentage of the overall amount, then lines form and the lines get longer. And so the Filipino line is longer than the rest of the world simply because there's more people in that line. And that they may have used up or getting closer to using up their allotment for this fiscal year. Now, the fact that the date for filing chart moved forward tells us that there is likely some play there for the Philippines. But anytime it separates and you have your own line, it's simply because there's a larger number of people from that country. And historically, it's been that way for a long time, as long as I can remember.
All right. Thank you, Mike. So Brian has a pretty straightforward question, Chris. He says, how do I know my priority date?
Right. So your priority date is the date that your I-140 is filed. So the simplest way is the approval notice of your I-140. Up in the top left corner, we'll actually have a box that says priority date, and that will be it. And again, that should be the date that your I-140 was filed.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've seen this question now a couple of times. We did touch on it a little bit already, but Mike, I'm going to give this one to you and you can kind of maybe reiterate. So it says, is it possible the next fiscal year will cover all of 2023? My priority date is October. Seems like we got a lot of October 23 priority dates.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking basically, are we going to cover more than 6 months in the next Visa Bulletin? The answer is obviously we have no idea. It is certainly possible that we'll cover more than 6 months, but as we are sitting today, we're April 1st and February 8th, respectively, between the Phils and rest of the world. And so that's a big jump to cover the entire rest of the year. Now, if we look at the date for filing chart, then we're still 7 months. So that's a big jump. So I would say it's unlikely, but it's certainly possible.
All right. So you keep your fingers crossed, but be realistic. That's really the point of all of this, is to make sure that you are still preparing for opportunities. And we'll talk in a little bit as well about what helps you to be prepared for what lies ahead. While you're waiting, you want to wait wisely. Suvik, you have a question. You said, does your agency help for H-1B visas? So AMN Healthcare International does have some opportunities for H-1B visa applicants, and you can apply at amnhealthcare.com/international. To the point that we made earlier, H-1B visas have some very specific criteria for nurses. It's not as widely used for that reason. There are some other specialties where it may be a little more straightforward and easy to do, but you're welcome to apply. And depending on what sponsors are out there looking for someone with your experience and have positions, maybe that will work for you. So Vergara, Chris says, dilemma on I-140, still waiting for approval. My priority date receipt was December 2023. Can we discuss about the delay?
Yeah, again, we can discuss it, but I don't really have any information about this person's particular case. If indeed their I-140 was filed in December of 2023, that would be a year and a half. I would ask them why they haven't contacted their case manager or their attorney, because you should never let your case go more than a few months without trying to get some update as to what's going on in your case. It's your case. So yes, I appreciate you've asked the question here, which I think is fine, but you really need to ask your case manager and your attorney as to why your case has been pending for 18 months. Indeed, maybe your case was approved and it's just not current, and that would be normal. December of 2023 means you're getting closer, but you're still you're still probably several months out at least before you're going to be current. So good luck.
All right. Thank you. And again, that's great advice to make sure that if you have questions, you're reaching out to your attorney and the team that you may work with at a particular organization like ours, and seeing where they may or may not be a potential for worry. But this timeline, based on what you've shared with us, seems a little bit lengthy. So definitely worth taking a look at. Have you reached out to your contacts who are directly supporting you in your situation? We're all a little different. So always make sure that you're staying in contact. And if you have some anxiety, the best way to relieve it is to actually get the information direct from your sources. Sudeep. Sudeep says, now that the Philippines is done, things should get easier with the other countries, right? How much progress do you think can be made in the fiscal year? So we've kind of answered about the fiscal year progress a bit, but what do you think about the comment that now that the Philippines is done, things would get easier for other countries?
Yeah, I have no idea what he means by that. I think historically, we're going to continue to see more nurses come into the U.S. out of the Philippines than any other country. Maybe all the other countries combined are still not going to be more than what comes in from the Philippines. So I think that characterization as the Philippines being done is not a very accurate characterization. The rest of the world projection is, as of right now, we're going to get to May, which means we'll get another 30 days maybe next month. That's it. So I would not expect any significant movement. Keep in mind, it's more than just nurses that are in here. It's people from all types of occupations. The Filipinos may dominate the nursing and healthcare, but in other occupations, they're from all over the world that are in here, whether it be engineers or teachers or anyone else. And so I don't expect any huge movement.
Thank you. So it's something that when we start to see something different, you may start to think, oh, okay, this is going to be how it works. So it's always nice to be able to talk to an expert to get the reality of things. We do have another question here from Drexy. And the situation Drexy's in is the I-140 was filed last February. It's been 14 months, still no update from USCIS. I already contacted my immigration officer to know what might be the cause of the delay, but she just said she'll get to it. So any other advice to add on this situation, Chris?
Yeah, I would never contact USCIS candidly. I have never found that they have any real actionable information. The better channel is to go through your case manager at AMN or your immigration attorney. I think you'd be surprised by the lack of knowledge that U.S. government officials have about any particular case. Indeed, sometimes even actual immigration laws.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Mary had a question or comment. She says, premium processing I requested and was told there's no difference. So we talked about this a little earlier in the show, Mike, but can you just clarify why someone may have advised her there's no difference right now?
Sure. I think the reason why most people say there is no difference is because that's 100% accurate. Legally, there is no difference. You get your priority date when your case is filed, not when it's approved. And unless your priority date is current, then getting an I-140 approved does not move you forward in your process. And so people view that as there is no difference. So I think doing premium processing is a peace of mind thing, and you have to decide if it's worth almost $3,000 for peace of mind. I think you could probably invest in quite a few other things for peace of mind, maybe some yoga, maybe reading a book, maybe taking a hike. That's a lot cheaper than $3,000. But ultimately, it's your money, and if you want to choose to spend $3,000 for peace of mind, I don't personally have any clients that will prohibit it. We will certainly try to discourage people from wasting their money. The other thing to keep in mind is people are always asking me to do a service request on my case. It's taken a while. And I'll say a couple things. First of all, the USCIS limits when you can do a service request. You have to be beyond what they consider normal processing time. And it is not the date that is listed on their website as normal processing time. It is the date that they have internally. So for example, right now for I-140s, unless it's been pending for more than 15 months, they will not let us submit a service request. So in addition, in my opinion, service requests worked one time. It was like on a Wednesday in like 1973. Chris and I had a party after it worked, but they rarely have any effect on a case. But we all do them because it makes us all feel that we're doing something. But the reality is they're going to get to your case. When they, as Chris mentioned earlier, they're putting resources in other things that have what they view as relevance today, as opposed to relevance a year from now. So I would not be concerned with I-140 processing time, but I understand that that's where premium comes into play. And again, it's your choice.
Yeah, there are so many other ways to use those resources that it's good to understand that, sometimes it's worth investing your money in certain things, but you want to make sure it's going to be something that truly has a benefit. And so we appreciate you bringing that question up. I'm sure there are others who have the same one. Fatima, this question, Chris, is one that's probably on the minds of some folks, not just in Iran, but there's certain other countries that may be experiencing some changes in the ability to move forward at the moment. So Fatima says, what happens to the candidates from Iran?
Nothing in particular happens to candidates from Iran. They're just unfortunately not going to be able to get visas if indeed they meet the bans that have been put out. So unfortunately, nothing happens to them, which is got to be incredibly frustrating that this country is turning their backs on otherwise deserving people to come here and helping American patients. If you are from one of the banned countries, you should talk to your immigration attorney to see if there are several exceptions to all of these kinds of things, but that's a very specific question. But unfortunately, if you're on the banned list, there's going to be no real options for you.
Mm-hmm. And one last question, Mike, as we're getting ready to close up. So Christine says, seeing that the rest of the world is advancing, do I need to process again if I qualify for cross-chargeability? And some folks may not know what cross-chargeability is either. So can you help us out?
Sure. So the general rule is you fall under the category where you were born. However, if you are married to someone who is born in another country, not citizenship, but born in another country, you can take whatever country is most advantageous. So if you have a spouse that was already on your I-140, then they are likely counting you under the most advantageous category. If you have a spouse that I call after acquired spouse, then it may not be reflected in the paperwork. Even if you may have added your spouse at the NVC, it may not be showing up in the same way. So I would reach out to your account manager and your attorney and let them know you married smart and you married in a category, someone from a country that has a faster priority date, and they can work to get you an interview scheduled faster.
Thank you so much for that. So many of you have posted questions very similar to some that were answered earlier in the show, which is why I've tried to take some that are a little bit different. So if you wondered how soon your date might be current and whether it will be maybe current in the fiscal year. Again, no crystal balls, but there is a discussion that's taken place already. So please go back and watch the earlier parts of this segment, and hopefully that will answer some of those questions that you might have posed that we couldn't get to today. Thank you so much for your participation in this process. We know that some of you may still be considering, who do I go to for expert advice? And we do these shows to help nurses and other healthcare professionals across the globe. However, if you're looking to work with a specific partner still, you're welcome to apply at amn.com amnhealthcare.com/international there at the bottom of the screen. And make sure that when you apply, you also are putting together information that will help you be a standout candidate. So it's important to list relevant clinical experience and to keep getting strong clinical experience. If you've already achieved a NCLEX pass, make sure that you're maintaining that clinical knowledge, and make sure that if you haven't done NCLEX yet, it's time to get it done so you can move forward with the rest of this process. And we appreciate you signing on today. Hopefully you'll attend our next session that's coming up here. We'll put those sessions up in just a second. Danielle will be returning as the host. Thank you for putting up with me today while I tried to cover some big shoes to fill. And I hope that the rest of your week goes well. And for those of you who are already into the weekend, enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Onwards and Upwards. Bye-bye.